Hello, Hero Collectors here. How's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are doing fantastic. I know I am, and today I'm going to be reviewing these two Marvel Legends figures. We have Marrow and Cyclops from the Nemesis Build-A-Figure wave. I have this wave complete. This is now my second review from the wave. I'll have two more reviews coming up from the other figures in the wave that I haven't reviewed yet. And then once everything's been reviewed, I will do a wave ranking. So make sure you are subscribed for that. But today, we're not talking about the rest of the figures. We're just talking about these two in the wave. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, ladies first, so let's take a look at Marrow. So, she is on a pinless base body, so she has pinless legs and pinless double-jointed arms. But she is modified from the usual base body that we're getting because she has these bone protrusions and a very different, costume sculpt. Now, from the front, you can see the bones have a little bit of shading here at the ends, just a little bit of paint to really add the texture or make the texture noticeable. But from the back, there is no real shading, and that comes up later. You can see the shading continues here on the torso, I guess, the knees as well. But I do have a few complaints with this figure just right off the bat. First off, the paint chippage, because they painted the neck here and they painted the inner thighs, so it's chipping where I'm articulating and just bumping into things. I think the head sculpt looks pretty good. It's a nice, kind of stern expression. I would have liked to have seen a second head, one that has like the bones around the eyes and this, on both sides, and she's a bit more angry, like she's about to go into battle. But, I do appreciate this head sculpt as it is. Her arms don't really go down just because of this gold ring sculpted there. It goes underneath the arms into the armpits, so they don't go down very much. And then this is sculpted here too. Now, the flesh tone bit here is a separate piece from this, so it's like glued down. What I'm wondering is, could they not have put like a crunch here, like the super articulated torso crunch? It's two separate pieces already. Could they not engineer something to where she could get more articulation? Because when we get to that segment, she is very limited. I think that's about all of my real complaints. It's just a bunch of stuff that came up, and I've noticed, the paint chipping is really annoying. But otherwise, it's a decent figure. I know a lot of people are wanting her for their Marvel vs. Capcom display. I'm going to put her in my X-Men display just because I don't know a lot about Marrow, and what I do mainly comes from the Wolverine and the X-Men cartoon, which you'll probably notice in a few of the pictures I've taken. So, as is, she looks great. There's just some, minor things that just kind of, not irritate, but just kind of eat away at the figure. Going into accessories, she has a set of grip hands that have the up and down hinge, not side to side. But then she also has a right karate chop or flat palm hand and a left fist. There is no matching set for these two, but that's okay. I didn't use these a lot in photos. What I did use a lot of, though, is these, bone weapons, bone daggers, bone swords, whatever you want to call them. They look really good. There are two different sculpts from what I can tell, but they have the same thing with the backbones, to where there's paint on this side, but there's none on this side. So you can see the texture here, but it just looks so much better from this side. So depending on how you pose her, you may want to adjust which way the blades are facing. Now, with accessories out of the way, let's go over articulation. Her head is on a ball and hinge, so she can look up very far. I like that. And very far down. She does look side to side, and she actually gets some head pivoting. Like I said, arms can only go down that far. They can go up. She can do a full 360 if you kind of move around the bones, because these are a pliable material, but they are still there, present. You don't want to force them too much because they will, probably come unglued or just, be affected over time. She's got a bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, pinless, like I mentioned before. All of the hands hinge down and up. Torso articulation, she can go back very, very far. I like that, but not very much forward. Again, why I would have liked to have seen a crunch there at the kind of lower abdomen, waist area. Legs can go out that far. She can't kick forward. Remember the chipping of the paint, because yeah, they did paint the inside green, but it's blue plastic. So I don't know. Maybe green plastic with blue paint just wasn't going to work. Who knows? She's got a thigh cut, and yeah, I already did the kick forward. She's got double jointed, pinless knees, can kick her own butt. No boot cut, but her ankles do move down. They do move up, and she's got ankle pivot. So what are my final thoughts on Marrow? Marrow is a toughie because while I do appreciate the character inclusion and really do want her for my shelf, she's got a lot of flaws and just things that kind of, bring her down a peg in terms of, my enjoyment. It's not a terrible figure by any means. It's just a couple steps down from what it could be, taking articulation a step further, a little bit more paint, switching where paint is. She could have been amazing, but instead we have to settle for great. And, it's not terrible. I have a really hard time explaining this. It's just, I'm disappointed in all the things that could have been much better, Hasbro's been doing a lot of good figures lately, so I just wish we could have seen a little bit better from this figure, even though I'm still okay with her in my collection. Does she have the fun factor? I would say yeah, especially when you give her bone swords, bone daggers, again, whatever you want to call them. I would have liked to have seen that alternate head. It would have made her a little bit more dynamic and imposing and fun, but as is, she's still pretty solid, and I had a good time taking photos. I got the photo bug when I picked her up, and just, I had plenty of ideas. Then to give her a final rating, I'm going to say a 7 out of 10. That's my average. I would still pay full price for her, but there are things that just kind of bug me about this figure. She is the only one I pre-ordered, but that was more out of noticing everybody else was pre-ordering her, so I needed to get mine in just so I didn't miss out. But at the same time, I do like the figure. I like that it's a new character for the X-Men. The pros and cons are really tough to weigh here, but I could see somebody else enjoying this figure a lot more than me. Alright, moving on to Cyclops. I don't really have a ton to say because, we've seen a lot of Cyclopses lately, and he is on the Vulcan bodies, which we've seen a lot as well, so there's not a ton to say. I will say this, the paint, it is yellow paint, so I can understand why it's this way, but it is, iffy at points. It's very light here, it's very caked on here, but also it gets scuffed. You can see some more of that on the back, and some paint actually made it onto the torso where it is the yellow plastic, I believe. Yeah, it is yellow plastic on the inside, but it is painted blue in the areas. There's paint here on the sides. It's yellow paint on any darker plastic is always going to be an issue. So, it was never going to be perfect, but, if it bothers you, it's going to be present on this figure. But I do like the way that they actually did pull off the X. It does look nice when you have him kind of standing vanilla. And not too terrible when he's posed. You can see a little bit of the blue kind of poking through here at the wrist, or the, forearm, whatever you want to call it, because this is yellow plastic on blue plastic, so it is just kind of bleeding there. But yeah, coming down to the legs, there's not a lot, really, just kind of the molded plastic. But yeah, head sculpt looks nice. I've seen that some people have been able to wedge the red out of the visor, so if you want to do that, you can. I have not tried it, but it is a possible display option because he does have an alternate head, so let's just use that to get into the accessories. He does come with a set of fists, pretty standard for Marvel Legends. Then in terms of hands, he comes with a right relaxed hand and a left, visor pushing hand or directing hand. They're ones we've seen before with other Cyclops figures, so there's no surprise there. He does have this alternate head, like I was mentioning earlier. I have seen people remove this and stick it into this head so you can have him screaming without using the optic blast. But speaking of said optic blast, we do have a new one here. It's very similar to an old one we've gotten. It just kind of plugs into the face there. It's got the kind of line pattern on this side, but it's then flat on this side, as you can see. You can see his reflection in it. But then it also has this kind of keyed in feature down here. So what that does is it allows you to plug in this kind of effect. So he can either be actually hitting something, or maybe that's just the way the blast is going. It allows for display options, and I appreciate that. It is a really cool optic blast. I want to put it on a Cyclops in my display, but I can't decide which one, because I believe this is also coming with the giant size figure, and you know, I want giant size in my collection on my main shelf, but I don't know if I want it with that optic blast in the display. Anywho, with that out of the way, let's go over articulation. This is the Vulcan mold, so pretty standard. As you can see, he can look up that far, look down a bit. He can turn his head side to side, of course. Very little pivoting. Arms can go up that high. Can do a full 360, and he does have butterfly joints that allow him to get some good forward and back movement in and out, I suppose. Bicep cut. Double jointed pinless elbows, all of the hands hinge down and up. And then he has crunch at the torso, can go that far, can go that far back, very gappy in the front. And then he's got a waist swivel, hips go out that far, he can kick forward, not back, thigh cut, double jointed pinless knee, can kick his butt all day, no problem. And then he has a boot cut there, and then foot hinges down, hinges up, and he does have ankle pivot. So what are my final thoughts on Cyclops? So like what I said when I started this segment on Cyclops, I don't have a lot to say. It is a solid Cyclops release. I don't have a lot of cons. Is it a costume that's really needed? I mean, yeah, if you want to build out that X Factor display, but do I really want to do that? I guess I'm in for it because I've got Scott and Jean. I'm just waiting for them to make, you know, Beast, Iceman, and Angel for this team. And then to go back around and make the secondary version of this team. But anywho, we're talking about just Cyclops here. It is a cool looking costume. It's that blue and yellow. It works so well with X-Men characters, especially on Cyclops. The X looks good. Yeah, the yellow paint is a bit iffy in places, but it's not terrible. The accessories are great. You know, we get a yelling head sculpt, we get an optic blast, we get some alternate hands. That's about all I really need for a Cyclops. So yeah, I don't have a lot. It's a solid release, but maybe not a needed costume, depending on the collector. I should add that in. Does he have the fun factor? Oh yeah, that optic blast really sets it above, you know, a few other like Cyclops figures. And he was just fun to pose around, even if it's not a costume I'm super familiar with or really needed. It really justified itself in my collection by just being a dope looking figure. And then for a final rating, you know, let's give it an 8 out of 10 with the caveat of if it's a costume you need. If it's not a costume you need, you can probably pass it on by, get the giant size. You know, there's the X-Men 97, that's the 90s costume. There are other options for a Cyclops. But if you are looking for an X Factor Cyclops for your collection, it's a pretty great release. I would definitely say you could buy it at full price and be satisfied. Alright, and that was my review of these two Marvel Legends X-Men Nemesis Build-A-Figure Wave figures. We have Marrow and X Factor Cyclops. Let me know what you think down in the comments of my review. Did you pick these figures up? What do you think of them? Let me know all the things down below. And like I said at the start, I will have more reviews from this wave coming very soon. I plan to pair Fabian Cortez and Gambit together, and then Husk and the Build-A-Figure Nemesis together. And again, once I finish those reviews, we will do a wave ranking. So make sure you are subscribed for that, and make sure you're liking this video and all the other videos you watch here on the channel, and all the videos you watch on other channels. Go show that love to other creators. They are putting in the hard work. But anyway, I will talk to you all in another video, another post, another time.